Okay, imagine this for a second. You're detained, your freedom's gone, but legally speaking, the clock on your basic rights hasn't even started. It might be hours, maybe even a whole day later, before those protections officially kick in. How does that sit with you? That's kind of the core feeling we want to explore today as we dive into a really critical question from a recent Kerala High Court case. We're looking at BNI 8581 of 2025, and the question is, when does that crucial 24-hour deadline to bring someone before a magistrate actually begin? Is it when the police write down arrested? Or is it the moment, you actually lose your liberty? Our mission here is to unpack this legal battle and show why getting this definition right has huge implications for freedom and accountability. So let's get into it. To really understand this, we need to start with the case itself. It revolves around a man named Biswajit Mandal. His situation is sort of the perfect example of this legal gray area. He was accused of possessing, a pretty large amount of ganja, nearly 27 kilos, at Ernakulam Junction railway station back in January 2025. Can you walk us through the timeline here?
Because the timing is everything, right?
Absolutely. The timeline is precisely what sparked the whole legal debate. It's quite stark when you lay it out. Okay, so Mandal was first taken into custody, note that word, custody by the Narcotics Control Bureau at 3:00 p.m. on January 25th.
3 p.m., okay.
But his arrest wasn't formally recorded until almost 24 hours later at 2:00 p.m. the next day, January 26th.
Wow, that's a long gap.
It is. And then he was finally brought before the magistrate at 8 p.m. that same evening, January 26th. So straight away, the petitioner's lawyer argued, look, this violates the 24-hour rule. That clock should have started ticking back at 3:00 p.m. on the 25th, when his liberty was first taken.
Makes sense from a rights perspective.
But the prosecution said, no, the clock only starts from the formal arrest at 2 p.m. on the 26th. By their math, bringing him at 8 p.m. was perfectly fine, well within the 24 hours.
So basically a bureaucratic start time versus a practical liberty-based start time.
Exactly. And it really hinges on what arrest truly means in practice, not just on paper.
If the prosecution's view had won out, what kind of potential problems could that have created?
Well, that's a huge concern. It could essentially create a legal black hole, right? A period where someone's detained, maybe interrogated, pressured, but technically not arrested, so the clock for legal safeguards isn't running. It opens the door to potential abuse and lack of accountability.
A kind of unrecorded limbo.
Precisely. And that's where this story gets even more interesting.
Because it wasn't just the usual lawyers involved. 2 law students, Ms. Makina Thomas and Mrs. Neha Babu, actually stepped up.
That's right. They acted as amici curiae, friends of the court, to offer their research and perspective.
And what did they argue?
They put forward a really compelling case, actually. They drew heavily on major Supreme Court rulings like D.K. Badasu and Joginder Kumar. These are landmark cases that already stress transparency and safeguards during detention. They argued, based on these precedents, that the 24-hour limit must start from the moment of effective curtailment of liberty.
Not just the paperwork.
Not just the paperwork. It's about when your freedom is actually effectively taken away. And the High Court agreed with them.
Okay, so what was the court's definitive statement?
The court was very clear. They stated, and I'm paraphrasing slightly here, that the 24-hour period starts not from the recorded time of arrest, but from the time the accused was effectively detained or their liberty was curtailed. Full stop.
That's quite definitive.
It is. The court really pushed back against using procedural delays to sidestep fundamental rights, substance over form.
So bringing it back to the listener, what does this mean for you, the average citizen? Why is this more than just legal detail?
Oh, it's absolutely fundamental. This is about Article 22 of the Constitution, the specific right to be produced before a magistrate within 24 hours. And that right flows directly from Article 21, the huge one, your right to life and personal liberty.
Right.
The court highlighted how these unrecorded periods of custody, this kind of informal custody, can directly lead to human rights violations. They even called it an unfair evasion of the law.
So no more hiding behind semantics like informal custody.
Exactly. The court essentially said detention is detention. The legal definition of arrest, drawing from other cases like Deepak Mahajan, isn't about the form. It's about whether you've been deprived of personal liberty to go where you please.
So for law enforcement, this means they need to be much more careful about documenting the actual moment someone's freedom is restricted.
Yes. It demands greater diligence, greater transparency. They need to log the real time of detention, eliminating any ambiguity or these shadow periods where rights could be at risk.
And in Mandal's specific case,
the court looked at that gap from 3 p.m. on the 25th to 2 p.m. on the 26th and called it what it was, and unrecorded illegal detention.
Because the clock has started ticking much earlier.
Precisely. And as a result, he was granted bail.
So really, this whole deep dive shows the legal system, in this instance at least, prioritizing the reality of freedom over just, the procedural steps. Your liberty, your rights, they start the moment they're actually taken, not just when someone fills out a form.
That's the core takeaway. It reinforces accountability.
Okay, so as we wrap up, maybe a final thought for our listeners to chew on.
Sure. Maybe consider this. How does having a clearer, more human-focused definition of arrest, one tied to actual liberty, affect the bigger picture? How might it change or maybe strengthen the trust and the delicate balance between law enforcement and the citizens they serve in a democracy? Something to think about.